tutorial video, I will illustrate how to work with variable formats in the KIWI Explore module. Oftentimes, analysis datasets contain variables which are defined with discrete numerical values. These values are typically associated with specific definitions that are not reflected by the actual number. For example, the variables which document the sex of the subject included in the clinical trials are typically defined using a 0 for male subjects and 1 for the female subjects, or vice versa. Similarly, variables documenting the renal or hepatic function are oftentimes defined with integers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to designate various degrees of impairment. So any tables or plots that would use those numerical variables would not necessarily convey the actual definition of those numerical variables, and it would be hard for a reader to really interpret those EDAs. KIWI Explore provide variable formats which allow you to convert those numerical values into text-based information and display that more informative information in the EDA plots or tables. So in this video I will describe how you can create collection of variable formats. I will talk about the differences between format by value and format by interval. Finally, I will illustrate how the data formatting impact EDA displays. I will now switch to the Explore module, which I have already opened with an analysis dataset called EDA_demo. I have run 5 different profiles already, 3 box plot and 2 summary statistics tables profile. They will illustrate the use of data formatting. Before I actually show you the results, I want to illustrate how to create format collections. For that, you need to click on the Configure menu and then the Format Collection option. This opens the Format Collection Manager. This is this little pop-up window. It shows in a green manner the list of format collections that are currently available for your dataset. At the top of this grid, a toolbar provides various tools. If you don't select any format collection in the grid, only a handful, 3 actually, of those options are active. You can click on New. This will create a new format collection that will be empty. Copy From will allow you to import a format collection that has been created at a different place, potentially a different project. I will illustrate that a little bit later. Refresh is just a button which will refresh the content of the grid in case a thing would be out of sync. If you select a row in the grid, the rest of the options become enabled. The first 2 options, View and Edit, would result in the same display of interface, so I will click on Edit. This opens the Format Collection window where you can start to configure the format collection. If I clicked on View instead of Edit, the same window would open but in view only mode, so you would not be able to make any modification to this existing format collection. So this window is divided into 3 areas. At the top you can see a text field where the name of the format collection is displayed. You can click on this text field and edit the name if necessary. On the bottom or the center part of this window, we can see two different panels. On the left, a panel called Format Association, and on the right, a panel called Format Names and Definition. I will start by describing this panel. This is the place where you can view the list of existing formats in this particular format collection. You can click on the Add button to add a new format, and this format would be empty. You will need to provide a definition in the right part of the panel. If you go back to the center panel, you can delete an existing format. So what defines a format is a series of information for variables, for formats defined by value. The start and end columns will report the same value, which would be the value associated with a label, which is the fifth column. So anytime a variable would have a value of 1, this text-based information would be displayed. The order column is the column that would define in which order this information would be displayed. So this order would impact stratification, the order of box plots, or the box in a box and whisker plots. So it's controlling the order in which your information is displayed. So it does not have to match the actual the order or the sorting order of the actual value. So you can rearrange your data this way. The exclude and start and end column are not necessarily meaningful for format defined by values. They are useful for formats defined by interval, like the CRCLF format. In this, for this type of format, you can transform a continuous variable into categorical into a categorical variable. So in this case, we have a creatinine clearance range of values. So, for example, 70 to 100, with the start not excluded, but the end is excluded. This would be associated with this label. I could have typed mild impairment or severe impairment. I chose to type in the actual interval using the exclusion notation on the right side. So I've created different intervals that cover the entire range of likely creatinine clearance. You can see that I've left the start field empty in the first row. This will cause KIWI to actually find the minimum value of the variable associated with this format. So it can be anything that would be below than 70. So at this point, you have created a collection of formats. You need to now associate those formats to variable contained in your dataset. This is what is done in this left panel, the format association. It contains 3 columns. The first one will allow you to define the variable. I will click on the Add button to insert a new row in the Format Association panel, and here I can select from the drop-down any variable that would be contained in the analysis variable analysis dataset. Sorry. So for example, I can select SexFC, and then I can select from the second column one of the format that was defined in the center panel. So this association is not necessarily meaningful, but it's just to illustrate the concept. The last column is a column that will define whether the label of the variables would be shown prior to the label of the value for these variables. So let me select something a little bit more meaningful, like the study variable. If this field was set to show, when the information about study is displayed, you would see the label of the study variable, which is probably study number or something like that. The study number will be shown prior to phase 1 SD. If you select hide, like it is the case now, you will only see phase 1 SD. So this is how you can define a collection of formats and associate them to actual variable. I'm deleting this association, which is meaningless, and I will close the format collection. So at this stage, what you've done is creating a format collection. You have not used or applied that format collection to anything. To do that, you actually need to define your EDA profiles to use a format collection. So if you go to EDA profile and select any existing profile, so let me choose this one, and if you click on the basic settings panel, the format collection is the information that will be shown in the first field. So you will be able to let me actually use that as in edit mode. I'm going to accept the rerun. In this first field, you can actually select from any of the existing format collection. If you select no format collection will be implemented. So this field here is available from the basic settings panel for all the plot types. So there is only one place where you can define that in all the plot types. So now when you execute this profile, actually this one will not use a profile collection because I've set no profile, but if I select one, from now on that profile, if I execute it like it is here, will apply the format collection, and I'll show you the result a little bit later. Just want to go back to the format collection manager to talk about the remaining functionality. You can select an existing format collection and create on copy. This will create a copy version of your selected format collection, and this is typically done if you want to make little changes to a particular format, use a shorter version of the labels if the original version does not sit well or fit well with the dimension of your plots. You can also click on copy from. I mentioned earlier that this would be a way for you to import a format collection from another project, potentially another drug to which you have access. In my case, I actually don't really have a lot of permissions, and I only see the format collections that are available in this project. If I had access to other drugs or project folders, they would be displayed here, and I could expand them to select another sets of format collection. You need to select your format collection of interest and provide the name of a new collection. And then click on the copy button. I will actually cancel because I don't necessarily want to create a copy. The delete button will allow you to delete a format collection which has not been used. So if a format collection was used as reported in the last column, you will not be able to delete a format collection. The usage detail is the last piece of functionality provided by the manager. It relates actually to the usage of this particular format collection. This opens another window which contains a grid with various columns. The first two columns report the ID and the name of a particular EDA profile. And you can see the type and the name here. So under scatterplot DV versus TSPD, sorry, you can see only one row. There will be one row per analysis dataset or non-mem output table that would have been used to execute this particular profile here. So if you have a profile that has been run on multiple datasets, you will see multiple rows under this header section. So this gives you an idea about which data files have been used to create a particular profile, which used your selected format collection in this area. So these are the functionalities offered by the collection manager. I will close the manager now to actually illustrate the impact of data formatting on your EDA profiles, tables, and plots. I will start by showing the content of the first table profile, which did not apply data formatting. This shows a table with distribution of age, weight, gender. So gender is a categorical variable represented by 0 and 1. And those distributions are stratified by study. The study variable was also defined by discrete integers 1, 2, and 3. There is also an overall column which provides the statistics for the overall data, ignoring the stratification. So if you apply the proper data formatting on the gender and the study variable, you can end with such a result where the 0 is replaced by male and 1 is replaced by female. And study is replaced by study 1 is replaced by phase 1 SD. This value of 2 is replaced by phase 1 MD, and the value of 3 is replaced by phase 2. The rest of the table is strictly similar. It's just a header for the columns and the rows, which reflect the formatted values. Formatted values can also impact plots. So here I will show a box plot, a series of box plots actually, with the gender variable, which only has the numerical value represented here. Just to clarify, on the right of this gender box plot, there is a mirror of this data. The data set also contained the sex FC variable, which was a character variable. So instead of recording 0 and 1, the variable recorded female and male. In this case, the data is displayed by alphabetic order, so female is displayed before male in this box plot. panel and treatment are also numerical values 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Interestingly enough, the variable label and units for treatment is treatment milligram, but those values do not represent milligram doses, but just an index or categories of treatment. If I show the same plots when I apply, in which I apply data formatting, you can see that now my gender variable, sex variable, shows male and female instead of 0 and 1. My panel variable is reported as ABC instead of 1, 2, and 3. And now my treatment variable is displaying the right milligram dose, 10, 20, 40, 80, and so on. So format collection, data formatting applies on axis definition. It could also apply on stratification and on plot titles, which are a mirror of each other. If the data was stratified using a conditioning or paneling variable that is formatted, this formatted data would also be shown on the strip. So there's many places where data formatting would be applied and be more meaningful than just using the original numerical value. I will select the last box plot profile to illustrate the impact of applying format to a continuous variable. So in this particular profile, I've only shown the distribution of weight against gender and creatinine clearance. So for gender, we have the same male and female breakdown. But for creatinine clearance, if this variable was defined as the original continuous variable, you would see an actual box plot, or not an actual box plot, an actual scatter plot. Or you should see a scatter plot. The profile will actually refuse to create a weight versus creatinine clearance box plot in these circumstances, but because I have applied a format, and because this variable was defined as a categorical variable, now you can see that a box plot or box is created for each intervals that define this creatinine clearance format. Just want to point out something: when you're using the a format by interval, you need to set the category of variable to categorical covariable. So whether it's in the variable categorization field, my creatinine clearance, no, in this case it was not defined here, it was defined directly in the second place where you can define the type of variable, which is in the format. It's box plot, so I need to click on box plot and select the format by interval. And in the variable definition, I had to select CRCL is not a continuous variable. If I did not do that, the box plot would not have been created, because KIWI would refuse to apply a format collection on a continuous variable. So the last piece of information that I want to talk about is the scope of format collection. So we have defined format collection for this particular data set, but you can actually use that format collection, or this set of format collection, for any data set or non-mem output table contained in the same stage. So a stage is, in our case, this folder here. I just want to remind you about the hierarchy of folder in KIWI. We start with a drug, then a project, and finally a stage folder. This is the scope of a format collection, which is the same as an actual profile, an EDA profile, or the library of labels and units. So if you open Explore for any dataset containing the same stage, you will see the same list of format collection. If you go to configure format collection, that would be the exact same list. Similarly, if you open a visualize page, so I'm going to select a run and select visualize. The visualize page will also have a configure format collection, and the formats that would be listed here, the format collections listed here, would be exactly the same as the one listed in Explore. So if you make any edit to a format collection in Visualize, that would be applied in Explore, and vice versa. Any modification made in Explore would be applied in Visualize. So it's a way to synchronize the format collection across EDAs that are created in Explore and model diagnostic visuals created in Visualize. So with that, this concludes our presentation of the data formatting functionalities in KIWI Explore. Thank you very much.